It takes a while to get the hang of it, but once you do, it's addictive. You got the hang of it? I mean, you can kind of copy me, even though it's not identical. You see what I do here? I go flip.
So what I'm doing is I'm demonstrating straw hat braiding, which was a task that a lot of women did at home during the time of Coolidge and even much earlier than that. And they would make straw braid, and then you could either just keep this to use domestically to make your own hats, to sew the braid together with linen thread, or you could, if you were really good at it and you wanted to earn some pin money, you could sell these to hat manufacturers who were totally willing to buy them because straw hats were extremely popular. So the more straw hat braiders, the better. So yeah, it was a way that women could basically earn a little bit of extra money for themselves, and it was relatively cheap. You could just glean the straw from the fields. This was rye straw that was grown just right around the corner here in Farmer Fred's field. So I just went along the edge and picked the straw, and then you have to process it by hand, which means you're cutting it into the lengths and then laying it out in the sun to dry for probably about a week or so. You take it in every night and put it back out every day until finally the green stalks turn to this gold color, and they're finally dry and ready to be turned into braid.
All right, my name is Andy Crossman. This is my 1929 Model A pickup, and I got it about 30 years ago from a guy in Proctor, and pretty much what you see is still like it was when I got it. There's a few odds and ends I did to it, but it wouldn't run. Thing wouldn't start, nothing. It would turn over. But so I went 2 weeks going through it, mechanical. I couldn't find the thing, nothing. So finally I got pissed off at it. Went in, had supper, came back out. It was dark in the garage. Left the lights off. Got in, tried starting it up. Saw a spark under the dash. Went underneath, tightened the screw, fired it. So then it's been running ever since. After that tune-up and everything I did to it, I hadn't had to touch it for another 15 years before I had to do another tune-up. Can't say that about today's cars, but yeah, it's a nice old rig. Doesn't go very fast. Ford ended up making 2 rear ends for this, 2 rear axles. The one is stamped with an A, and the other one's stamped with a B. The one stamped with an A can go 50 miles an hour. This one, stamped with a B, the top speed is about 35. So you're not going to break any land speed records with this thing. But it's a nice old rig. Once in a while, bring it down, tour it around, have it down here at Coolidge, and then that one in there, that's a 23 Model T in the barn there. That runs and drives. And that one I got from a guy in Chester. Ended up doing the mechanical work for that and giving it a fairly good paint job. My buddy gave it a good paint job.
We are Green Mountain Timekeepers, and our purpose in existence is to restore clocks and pocket watches, and we're spread all over the state of Vermont, and we have a group that actually does repair, and some people actually just collect. And David is actually located in Vergennes, and I'm located in Rutland. Lee Decatur is down in Chester. Who else we got? Jack Young is in Fairhaven. And so we're all over the state, and we're glad to look at what people have for clocks and watches, and tell them what they have, and repair them if they need repair, or tell them they can't be repaired. What else, gentlemen?
Now we have a selection of tools of all kinds for watches, clocks, books, and a lot of talking. So if anybody, tell everybody that they look us up, we'll talk to them about clock.
And Paul, I guess you're down in Middletown Springs, right?
Yep, representing my dad, Alan Grace.
Oh, Bob's in Hubbardton.
Hubbardton. Yeah.
Honey bomb.
And he collects clocks and sells honey. He has an apiary. So we're interested in old stuff.
So this is Calvin's birthplace, born here on the 4th of July, 1872, our only president born on the 4th. This building was actually built in 1840s. The store was added 10 years later, 1850s. And Calvin's mom and dad, who grew up right here in the village, get married in 1868 and settle in here. Dad is the storekeeper and postmaster. Calvin's born here, spends his first 4 years of life right here in this house. We have all original furnishings, so you can actually see the bed that Calvin was born in.
First I'm going to shear her by hand, you know, the way she used to be sheared. It doesn't hurt at all, you know, just like getting a haircut. Now, one of the first questions a lot of people ask when they see somebody, you know, shearing a sheep is they want to know how fast can you shear a sheep? And I tell them, well, it took the sheep a long time to grow this wool. An extra few minutes taking it off, it really doesn't matter. Just as long as you can get it off quicker than they can grow it, you'll stay ahead of them. Now, a lot of folks, especially if they haven't sheared a lot of sheep, they're not quite sure where the sheep is under the you know, so they'll cut once to find out where the skin is. Actually, then they'll cut a second time to make it look like a smooth shearing job. But what happens is, the second time they cut that wool, you get these little short pieces. Now, say you were to spin that wool into yarn, those little short pieces spin right along with the rest of it. But knit that yarn into a sweater, as you wear that sweater, the little short pieces all come loose. And what'll happen, it'll ball or pill on the outside of your sweater. And the wool is actually very hard stuff to cut. And even the clippers, you know, their skin is very thin.
Yeah.
So it's
So you can't use like a high power.
oh yeah, no, you can.
Yeah.
You know, but for a museum, it's much better to show, you know,
To
how
show
they,
how they
yeah,
did it
how
right
they used
back in
to
the
do
day.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, now the wool off the stomach
Yeah.
is called belly wool.
Belly wool. Yeah.
Now that's a poor quality. Sheep spends a lot of time laying on it.
Yeah.
It gets all dirty and matted. Now, folks generally don't spin the belly wool.
Yeah.
If they were to use it at all, it'd be to make felt. So just set that off to the side. Now my first rule of thumb, especially when shearing around certain parts of the animal, I don't want to shear off anything that won't grow back. So I'm very careful, you know, down here. Now I do a lot of demonstrations at museums and elementary schools for younger folks.
I know.
And I always like to ask them questions while I'm shearing to see whether the teacher's done any work with them or not before I get there.
Right.
Well, the first question I always like to ask is, what do you call a girl sheep?
Yeah.
Now, generally, they have no idea, so I had to come up with a good clue for the word. Boy, one year I thought I had a great clue. Couldn't wait to try it out. Didn't work at all. I had to give it up after the first day. I would say, you might write, I love,
Yeah.
Well, the only answer all the kids gave me was Mom. I couldn't argue.
Not do her job, Connie. We would have had them prepared.
I actually couldn't argue with that answer at all.
Right.
So I had to come up with a different clue.
Yeah.
So I would say, if it's not me, it must be. Then they would say you. Only it's spelled E-W-E instead of Y-O-U. Okay, now I'm going to take just a little off the top. Now the wool off the top of the head is that called the top knot. You know, that's the poorest part of any of the wool on a sheep. It's shorter. A lot of times it has a little hair mixed in with it. There's not much you can make out of the top. The main use is to make tennis balls. So if you ever played tennis with a halfway decent ball, chances are it started out originally as the top of a sheep's head. I know I used to shear for a fella for a number of years. There was a real serious tennis player. He always told me he used to use a brand of tennis ball called Top Knot. I never knew where the name came from. Okay, now this is where most people, when they first start shearing, lose it. That whenever you change a sheep from one position to another, a lot of times they'll kick once or twice. And what some folks will do is they'll grab a leg, try to stop it from kicking. All that does is makes the sheep mad. Now next thing you know, after the sheep gets mad, the person trying to shear gets mad. And before you know it, because the two of them are rolling around on the ground fighting with each other, and nobody's getting any work done. So just let them kick once or twice, and when they see they can't get up and they're not going to get hurt, they'll relax again. Now, every once in a while, this gal will, talk, trying to make sure that her buddy's over there in the pen. And if you listen to the sound a sheep makes, a number of years ago, government did a research project. They spent $10,000 on it. They wanted to come up with exactly what sound a sheep made. Did they go baa or ma? Well, $10,000 later, they came up with the conclusion they went ma. And I've always told people, I could have told them that for $5,000. And they could have saved half their money. But when I put this one back, matter of fact, the other gal is still going to be scared for a little while. Because she's not going to recognize her, without her wool. It takes a little while for them to figure out, who's who. I actually have her head back between my legs. Now, there's a reason for that. Not that it's a good scissors hold, so she can't get away from me. But what it does, it keeps the skin tight on this side while I'm shearing. If I was to shear her on this side with her head forward, I'd have a lot of loose wrinkles in the skin. And of course what would happen is I'd take all those wrinkles right off with the wool. Now I don't want to do that. I want to get the wool off and leave the sheep in one piece. It's like the old saying, you can shear a sheep many times, but you can only skin it once. So I don't want to hurt the animal at all. I've had people ask me, what's the difference between a hand crank clipper and electric? I tell them, as far as I go, there is no difference. You got to ask the person turning the crank. They can answer that one for you. And because of that, it actually took two people to operate it. One to turn the crank while the other one did the shearing. So I was hoping I could get a volunteer. Maybe somebody to turn the crank for me. Yeah, okay, this.
I drove this.
And he may never volunteer again, but we got him now. Yep. As he turns that crank. I almost think he's done this before.
I'm retired, so I've been saving up all my energy.
Yeah. I always like to think that old expression, last leg of the journey, came from somebody shearing sheep. You get in that last leg, you're just about there. Okay. I think he did an excellent job, though. Now, to give you an idea just how hard he worked, a number of years ago, I was doing a demonstration at an event. Just got done shearing the last sheep, loaded the sheep up, and I put my hand crank away. When this one older gentleman came over, he heard there was shearing going on there that day. He was afraid he was too late to actually see the shearing, but he was hoping that he could at least talk sheep with somebody. Well, I told him how I sheared the sheep by hand and with a hand crank. Well, he told me that when he was a boy, his father had 200 sheep, and he used to have to turn the crank while his father did the shearing. Now, his father had sold the sheep in 1925, so it'd been quite a while since he'd even seen one of these. So I asked him, would you like me to bring the old hand crank back out so I can remember when you were a boy? He didn't even want to look at it. He said, I can remember to this day what that darn thing looked like. But okay, to give you an idea just how much you can make out of a fleece, I'll take just a little tiny piece of wool like this. Let me see whether I can get any kind of a thread out of something, you know, this small. Boy, I don't know. Maybe I can at least get a, thread started. I was doing this at a fair one time. I heard this fellow yelling to his wife, "You mean to tell me we just paid $500 for a spinning wheel? Look, you can do it for nothing on your leg." I said, "No." I said, "This is just to kind of give you, an idea." You can see out of that little tiny piece of wool, I actually got a piece of thread, 3 feet long. So imagine what you can get out of the whole fleece. Okay, thanks for stopping. Yeah. I remember asking another fellow one time that used to handle a lot of sheep, what's the easiest way to move sheep? His answer was not very far.